In the quiet corners of Indiana, tucked between sleepy forests and endless cornfields, lies a town called Maple Hollow. It's the kind of place where life moves slow, everyone knows your name, and nothing ever really changes. But in the autumn of 2019, something did change. It started with a schoolteacher named Sarah Whitmore. 32 years old, with kind eyes and a past she kept locked away, she came to Maple Hollow seeking peace. What she found instead was a story that would haunt the town for generations. Sarah left the hustle of Chicago for what she called a slower life. She rented a charming two-story Victorian on the edge of town, 214 Riverbend Street. The locals called it The Bend. To them, it was just an old house with creaky floors and peeling paint. The realtor cheerfully told her, "Old house, big history. You'll love it." What she didn't mention was that the last tenant, a retired cop, fled in the middle of the night, or that the family before him was found inside in an apparent murder-suicide that the town preferred to forget. But Sarah signed the lease anyway. When you're running from something, you don't always look too closely at where you're running to. At first, life was perfect. Sunlight streamed through the lace curtains. She filled the rooms with books, and her students at Riverside Elementary adored her. But then, the noises began. A faint tapping on the wall behind her bed. A whisper-like sound carried on the wind through the vents. The kind of thing you tell yourself you imagined. Then one night, she awoke to music. A soft, slow piano melody coming from downstairs. But Sarah didn't own a piano. She crept down the creaking staircase into the cold, empty living room. The music was still there, a faint echo that seemed to retreat into the very walls as she approached. The next morning, she tried to laugh it off. "Old houses make noises," she told herself. But a seed of unease had been planted. The house wasn't just old. It felt like it was watching. Maple Hollow, like many small towns, was built on stories, and the stories about Riverbend Street were dark. The land once belonged to a man named Elias Carter, whose wife had tragically drowned in the river back in 1923. Heartbroken, Elias built the house and lived as a recluse until he vanished one stormy night, leaving only a trail of muddy footprints leading to the water's edge. Since then, tragedy seemed to follow every family that moved in. A fire, a disappearance, or worse. But in small towns, silence is a powerful force, and it's how secrets survive. 2 months after moving in, Sarah's unease grew. She started noticing a man, tall, quiet, always in the same brown coat, standing across the street near a lamppost at dusk. At first, she dismissed it, but he kept appearing. She started locking her doors, her sense of peace eroding. One afternoon, she found a note tucked under her car's windshield wiper. It read, "You shouldn't be in that house. It remembers things." Her hands shook. There was no signature. She called Sheriff Tom Weaver, a lifelong resident of Maple Hollow. He promised to look into it, but his tone was weary. He already knew the house. He already knew the stories. On the morning of December 12th, Sarah Whitmore didn't show up for school. The first day, people weren't worried. But when she missed the second day, and then a third, concern turned to genuine fear. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her car sat in the driveway, covered in frost. Deputies were called. They broke down the front door. The house was eerily silent. A half-eaten breakfast sat on the kitchen table, a mug of coffee gone cold beside an open notebook. Her coat hung by the door. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. Upstairs, on the wall above her unmade bed, a single word was faintly written, as if in chalk. "Listen." Of Sarah Whitmore, there was no sign at all. The media descended on Maple Hollow, and the case of the beloved missing teacher became national news. Sheriff Weaver gave vague statements about an ongoing investigation, but behind the scenes, the case was going cold. Forensics found no forced entry, no struggle, nothing. The only clue was a faint recording on an old tape recorder they found in her study. The tape began with the sound of rain, then Sarah's tired voice. "If anyone finds this, I think the house is trying to tell me something. It's not evil, but it remembers. Every sound, every pain, every secret. I think it's lonely." Then after a click and a long pause, a whisper, so soft it was almost mist. Stay. The tape ended there. Sheriff Weaver started digging into the man in the brown coat. Neighbors confirmed seeing him watching the house. Digging through property records, the sheriff made a chilling discovery. The house had once been owned by Daniel Carter, the great-grandson of the original builder, Elias. Daniel had sold it to a shell company and disappeared in 2018. When the sheriff pulled his photo, his blood ran cold. Daniel Carter was the man in the brown coat. But according to records, he was dead, reported drowned in the very same river as his great-grandmother a century before. Winter settled over Maple Hollow, and the investigation stalled. The story began to fade. Until one night in February, a 911 call came from 214 Riverbend Street. The line was silent, just static, but the caller ID showed Sarah's number. Deputies rushed to the scene. The house was empty, cold, and dark, but her notebook was open on the table. The last entry, dated the night she vanished, read, "He's here again. The house won't let me leave. I hear the river in the walls. If I go, it'll find someone else. Maybe. If I stay, it ends with me." Years passed. The mystery of Sarah Whitmore became just another local ghost story, until Julia Hart, a true crime podcaster, stumbled upon the case. Her show, Unfound America, was famous for breathing new life into forgotten disappearances. She drove to Maple Hollow and found the house boarded up and overgrown. Ignoring the locals' warnings, she went inside. The air was thick with dust, but it felt strangely alive. Her audio recorder picked up faint sounds, taps, whispers, the ghost of a conversation. Then, her flashlight flickered. For a split second, she saw it, a shadow on the far wall, the distinct outline of a woman. She stumbled back, dropping her recorder. When she picked it up, she realized it was still on. And playing back the audio, beneath her own panicked breathing, she heard a soft, familiar voice. A plea. "Please, listen." The recording went viral. Headlines screamed, "Ghost of Missing Teacher Speaks." Skeptics called it a hoax. But in Maple Hollow they knew. They said the house remembers. It doesn't haunt people. It absorbs them, collecting their stories, their pain, their very existence. The town finally condemned the house. As bulldozers tore it down, they found a rusted box buried in the foundation. Inside were old, water-stained photographs of every family that had ever lived there, all smiling on the porch. And in the corner of every single photo, a faint shadow stood in the window, a woman's shape. The last photo was from 2019, the year Sarah disappeared. Today, the lot at 214 Riverbend Street is just an empty patch of grass overlooking the river. But some locals say that on quiet nights, you can still hear the faint sound of a piano drifting on the wind. Others claim to see a woman walking by the water's edge. The truth of what happened to Sarah Whitmore remains buried with the house's secrets. But the story serves as a chilling reminder. It's not the people who haunt the house. It's the house that haunts the people. And if you listen closely, you might just hear her voice, carried on the wind, with a final desperate plea. Please, listen. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you enjoy diving into mysteries like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories. Stay curious and stay safe.